And then just for the recording, I'm gonna say it again. I'm gonna be presenting something that I already presented, but this time is gonna be kind of like the groomed down designs that are like more MVC than the original ones, and also revisit some small aspects from the original one that I presented. So, okay, so let me share my screen. Right. So I don't know if you guys remember this, but I think I showed this last year, maybe like first days of December, I believe. So basically what's going on here is like, in testing, we have like the ability of, not the ability, we have like certain suites, certain tests that they look a web app, and then they kind of like test that web app. And within the context of that, sometimes we need screenshots. So for that, you use things like Selenium, you use like a web driver that goes and like navigates into like an actual review app and then performs all these actions. And then like, if you give the instruction to the script to take a screenshot on failure or like on certain case scenarios, then it will do that, right? So because this is kind of like an important use case for many people taking the screenshots, then we decided that we wanted to create like a dedicated view for the screenshots. So what I showed last year was basically, okay, there's gonna be this kind of like sub view in the job view that's gonna show you like all the tests that are running for that particular job. And then if they have screenshots, you will see that they do have screenshots, and you can expand them, and you can see like the screenshot, and you can see the details of the screenshot, like the viewport size in which took the screenshot, plus all the user agent details, like the URI of the review app at which the screenshot was taken. So there's a lot of details, and of course this had like a lot of functionality going on here. Like there was like the ability of switching between sessions, like filtering by status, hiding the task, expanding the screenshot. So there was quite a bit of things going on there, and then the ability of seeing the raw logs for that. So this is good, but like we had to groom down this. I mean, we needed to start like way smaller, and there's also some considerations about this design in terms of like where it's living right now. So this lives at the job level, and after further analysis, we realized that like if you have this at the job level, then if you have multiple jobs that are taking screenshots, then it becomes very painful to just go on like inspect all those jobs and see all those screenshots. And that's something that can definitely happen. You can have like several jobs with screenshots on them. So what we did was revisit this a little bit. So okay, so let me just go to the new one. So the first thing that we did is that now we are not gonna have this view at the job level anymore. So the idea is that now this view is gonna live at the pipeline level. And this is better because like we already have tests, and tests are very similar to what screenshots is gonna be doing. So in tests, we basically show all the suites that run jobs, and we show the jobs or like the actions that those sorry. So the suite and the job is basically the same. So we show all the jobs, and we show the actions that the job took when it was running the tests. We show if it failed or if it passed, and then we show the trace, and we show like many of those things. So it's very, very similar to like what we're gonna do with screenshots. The main difference here is that with screenshots, we're just showing the actions within all the suites that took screenshots. So one consideration that we had for this is that maybe we could actually add the screenshots to the tests tab, like as part of like all the jobs that are shown there. But I basically dismiss that option because like if you see, for instance, this example that we have here, there's like, I don't know, like 131,458 tests. So like that's pretty hard to navigate. Like if you want to find the screenshots inside those tests, it's gonna be pretty hard. And then that means that you also need to build some sort of functionality for that, you know, like some filtering or some type of stuff that allows you to see the screenshots. And then on the other hand, is like most people, they just want to see the screenshots on isolation, right? They want to see like, show me all the things that fail and like the ones that had screenshots, and I care about those things. I don't want to, if I want to inspect the tests deeper, then I'll just go to the tests tab. So basically we decided that we're gonna use this, like create like a new tab called screenshots. And this tab is basically a table. And the table shows the name of the action, the suite from which is coming. The suite is basically the equivalent to the job, the status of the action, the start time, duration, all that stuff, the action that it took in terms of like finding the selector and all that stuff, and then the screenshot itself, right? So in this particular case, we're saying that there's like 5 screenshots, right? So all of those screenshots are shown here in context. And then there's 2 things that I'm gonna explain here. One is like, there's the ability of downloading the screenshots, or like in this particular case, downloading the whole artifact, because there's 2 things. There's the screenshot, and then there's the actual kind of like raw log that you can download as well. So basically the idea here is that this will download a zip with the, like a zip file with the screenshot and the kind of like raw log, like the XML xUnit test. And then one particular aspect about this that it's pretty important is that just screenshot is not gonna give them enough context of what happened. I mean, it matters a lot because they can see that something is wrong. So maybe they can say like, you know, like this button shifted like 5 pixels to the left for some reason, right? So like, not that's important, but now they need to understand why, you know, like what was the test that failed. So like, for instance, the test was testing for like CSS classes, right? So from this view, they cannot tell that. So the way to actually figure out that is by looking at the trace, this like the trace, the log trace that matters for that particular screenshot. So the way that you achieve that is by clicking this guy. So like if you hover over this guy, you will see like it's view trace, and then we would present this model that has the trace, right? I showed this to my UX buddy yesterday, and Alexis, and she had some good comments about like the fact that we were trying to do it like this. Like she had some concerns about like context, like do you lose context too much if you click this, and then like you're kind of like, oh, what I'm looking at, you know, what does this thing correspond to in the table, right? And I agree with her. I think like there's probably some things that we could do to improve that. I mean, we have the name of the we have the name of the action there, but one thing that I was thinking is maybe even showing the screenshot on the modal as well. I mean, like that's basically redundant, but like I don't think it's gonna hurt the user, and they can see like, oh, here's the screenshot, and here like below the screenshot you can see all the trace. So yeah, this is basically, so the idea now is just like to show this table always with the screenshots expanded, because it's all the screenshots. That's the name of the tab. This is gonna work for anything that it's coming from an xUnit report. So like if your test generates an xUnit report, regardless if it's using Selenium or Puppeteer, whatever, like it's or however you're like doing this, it's always gonna look for the xUnit report, and then it's gonna generate this view out of that. And then one thing that I also did here is like showing the error state for this, because like there's like one kind of like race condition, which is like it can actually like like the whole thing can like say like, oh, I'm looking at xUnit report, I see screenshots, but then like it goes and it kind of like tries to retrieve those screenshots and they failed for some reason. I mean, like that's unlikely, but it could happen. So like, yeah, we needed kind of like some error state there for that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I also, like, of course I'm looking for feedback on all these things, but I also was thinking about like I have been thinking about one particular kind of like thing about this design, which happens a lot in GitLab actually, which is the fact that, for instance, with tests and with security, which is not showing up here, we only show those tabs if the pipeline has those things configured, right? Like if it has security things going on, then it will show the tab, right? And I was wondering if that's the best practice, right? Like, do we really want to do it that way? Because I think that basically, like, it definitely doesn't favor discoverability. I mean, like, if you don't see the security tab, although you don't have security jobs, that means that you will never find out that thing is going on, right? Like that you actually have the ability of setting up security, and the same thing goes for tests and screenshots. And I was looking like around. Let me see if I can show this quickly. I was looking around GitLab, and I don't think we're very consistent with that. Like if you go to something like, for instance, I'm gonna go to this repo, and you go to security, and I go to security dashboard here. Like we don't hide security dashboard, right? Like we have like an empty state, right? Like where we say like, oh, learn more about this thing if you want to use it, right? So I was wondering why we hide these tabs there if the functionality exists there, right? So I don't know. That basically is kind of like the last bit that I want to say, because I think that's kind of like something for discussion. I want to hear your thoughts on that, because I'm inclining my thoughts towards the idea that we should have all the available tabs always showing up. And if you don't have those things, you just click on them and there's an empty state that says like, oh, this job didn't have screenshots. If you want to test with screenshots, here's a guide for that. That was kind of like the last bit that I want to say.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a pretty valid point about, I mean, it's one of our larger underlying UX problems across GitLab is discoverability of features. So I would guess the reason why we've gone to this hide tabs scenario is probably born out of, and I'll try not to get on a rant here, but it is one of my least favorite patterns in GitLab. So
Right.
If you go back to the, can you go to the tab? Or there it is right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I really hate this idea of using tabs as filters, right? So if you look there, like jobs and then failed jobs, to me, failed jobs should be a filtered subset of jobs. But we never do the filters, and now we use tabs as filters. And even to the point, I understand why you're breaking out the screenshots. In my opinion, long-term ideal situation would be like, this is a test and it's a filterable set of that. But we don't have these robust filters on a lot of these views. So we end up, I feel like, going to this tab pattern.
Right.
And then I think that's why it's hidden, right? Because it makes sense if failed jobs isn't there to just hide that top tab.
Right.
But I really don't like this pattern.
No, I think I agree with you. Like basically kind of like what I was thinking at the beginning is like, I don't want to create a new tab, right? I want to keep everything within tests, because test is like like this is part of the tests, right? But a little bit of context, I don't think this is gonna make sense until I actually show it. So you see why it's kind of like so. I'm gonna use a horrible example, which is GitLab org, which, as we know, loads super slowly, has millions of things going on. But I think I think it's gonna show like the problem pretty well. So if I go to let's go to any merge request. Actually, let me go to a pipeline. And of course, this is gonna take a long time. Let me find a failed one somewhere. This one is failed. So this is extremely slow. I don't know if this is like just GitLab.org, but like this is painfully slow. All right, so this one has like millions of tests, right? So if you click this, this one is also gonna take a long time, but you will see the problem right away.
Yeah, no, I think I get it right. If you have 15,000 of anything, that's not filterable and not sortable. Putting any information in there is essentially it's
exactly.
Gone.
So so what I was trying to get to is like while this loads, like my initial plan was like, let's add some type of filter into these, right? Like maybe there's like something like a control at the top of this table that is like, show me all the suites that have screenshots, and maybe you have screenshots here and everything, right? But yeah, that's the problem that I see is that like, first of all, we're not ready for that, like to create like that robust thing. I mean, like the whole thing about these was let's move towards a more MVC state, right? So like improving this table, like adding filtering and everything, I don't think it's within the scope of that, which is why I kind of like gravitated towards the idea of having a tab. But also like from like an information architecture point of view, if you like, this one actually doesn't have like a lot of failed things, but like even if you click at this thing, then there's like a lot of things going on here, right? Like there's all these tests, you know, so like you need, if you had filters outside of that context, you need to have also filters inside this context. So the design becomes way more complex, right? Like while the other one is like isolated, right? It's just kind of like the idea of like, oh, this pipeline has screenshots, which matter to me because I want to see how like things were behaving. Those jobs that were taking screenshots were behaving. So like, show me that. But I concede that that's basically kind of like a cheap way to like filter tests in favor of screenshots. And
yeah, I think it's a perfectly valid MVC. I'm not trying to suggest that. I think this is the way we should go. I think this is a perfectly valid MVC. I think I'm just also suggesting that whenever I see 15,000 of anything,
yeah,
like we need to filter. Yeah. Like eventually, I would like to see this. Maybe because I think this view is illustrating that it's kind of lost its value at this point.
Oh, it's totally. I mean, like so it's not totally unusable, but like what value do I get from these? Really, like out of the box, not much, right? Like it's unless I do command find and I try to find like something like approvals. I don't know if that's, you know, like that's kind of like how I like, that's kind of like the hacky way that I will use this view somehow, but I don't even think that that's like really that good, you know? I mean, like it's just there's
right.
Again, yes. This is GitLab.org, right? Like it's kind of like a very extreme use case.
Yeah, but I mean, if it's possible, right? And right. And when you run tests, it's not like a human being actually like did this on purpose. This is right. What happens when you write code with tests and to get coverage and things like this. Like, yeah, that's the nature of writing tests. Is that right? There obviously is going to be a lot of them. I mean, you're right. GitLab.org is enormous.
Right.
But a lot of repos are enormous, so we need to handle this situation.
It's true. You know, just looking at this, I think like I'm gonna open an issue for this, but like there's no reason to show like unfail things. You know why? I'm thinking that like you should be showing like failures, right? I mean, like there should be like a filter somewhere that says like show only failures.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we just need to investigate like a full on filter sort, maybe even like, you know, a view of this that.
But what do you guys think about the fact that like we don't show, for instance, security when like there's no security jobs? But like, what do you think about not showing that until you have security jobs or like the screenshots or whatever is gonna happen on these tabs? Because I was thinking, like, I keep thinking that like we should show these, just like basically have an empty state for these, saying like you don't have any security jobs.
Yeah, I think Dimitri and I agree that this will also be a good idea to show an empty state, like what Mike already said, to help the discoverability, and also kind of, you know, gives the users a hint that, you know, security jobs are available there. We can definitely an empty state.
All right, I'm gonna. That's Dimitri. Do you own these? I mean, do you own these? I mean, we are gonna add the like, for instance, screenshots. I know that like Ian like owns like the security tab, but like my question is, do you own
security,
like the fact that it shows up?
Security tab is owned by the security team, as far as I know. The pipeline page incomplete is, I think, part of CI in a way, but it isn't like that we need to approve anything in that sense. It is. What I do think is that you know, adding yet another tab is a clear sign that we need to rethink our strategy, because we're, you know, this is one of those cases where it's clear that we're extending beyond any original scope for this page. I agree with Mike that this is a very valid MVC and that we should move forward in order to move forward. But I do think that, you know, we have the need to rethink our concept of extending the pipeline page indefinitely. If that is part of purely CI, I don't think so at the same time, because it touches so many other you know, workflows and stage groups. This is a perfect, like it's the merge request widget all over again in a different place.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, like, definitely we're not gonna solve this problem here on this scope, but I think we should start thinking about how we're gonna deal with these. I also feel that we kind of like abuse tabs too much in GitLab, you know, like when we don't have like a way, when we don't find like a good way to place something in context of a screen, is like, oh, put it in a tab. Like the tab is like the catch-all pattern, you know? And tabs are good, but I think like we should have like a healthy balance. It cannot be that like every time that we have something new, it's like a new tab, right? Like it's not good for the users. It doesn't favor discoverability. And our tabs are not great. I mean, I'm gonna say it. I feel that our tabs are like, sometimes I look at them and like, it's like, because I work at GitLab, I know that how they work, but I think like if I was a user, when you go to an issue, like it took me a while. Let me open one. It took me a while to discover like the design stuff, you know, like I did, like, it's kind of like until someone said, oh, there's a design stuff, you know? So why is that?
There's an existing issue on especially, like, there are two parts here, right? It's legacy UI that's being extended beyond its original idea. And then there's the second thing, which is the design of our tabs component is not fulfilling its needs of being, you know, accessible and clear towards the user. This is a concept that was very clear, especially for the pipelines tab within the merge quest page, where users were scrolling over it, looking clearly for a sign where, you know, some hint of pipeline, and they just didn't see it. There's dedicated issue to improving it.
Okay.
But you know, it's the same thing with the merge request widget. the original intent didn't include this much expansion.
Right.
This needs to be a dedicated effort. It is not something that is easily solved.
Right. Yeah, I think it happens a lot. Yeah, like, well, this is not a good example, but yeah, with the merge request widget, like there's